Let's talk a little bit more about the biggest issues plaguing the 2022 Indianapolis Colts. I'm joined by yet another special guest to dive into some of the burning questions that have been running rampant across the fan base. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, Colts fans, for tuning in and making us your number one listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. This is Zach Hicks, and I'm joined by yet another special guest, my esteemed colleague, Andrew Moore. You guys have probably heard him on here a couple times, and also he works with Jake and I over at Horseshoe Huddle. So, we're keeping it within the family here. We're bringing someone from the family on. But today I have Andrew jumping on with me. We're going to talk a little bit about Frank Reich's press conference and the news and updates that he gave us. Plus, we're going to dive into the main issue of this Colts offensive line. Yet again, I know we can't stop talking about the offensive line on here. And before we get into all this, I do want to say the shout out. I did promise last episode that whoever had the best comparison for my bald head will get a special shout out on here. So Jeff Cena from our YouTube comment section. Jeff has been a loyal listener since day one with us. He compared me to the Mr. Clean, but it was to the new Mr. Clean. I don't know if you guys have seen that commercial yet. That Mr. Clean where it's like slow motion and like all sensual. That's what he compared me to. So I just thought that was a great compliment. So Jeff Cena, just bonus points for you. And then I think there was a guy on Twitter. I think it was a good friend, Colts guy Jake, said that I should cosplay as Avatar: The Last Airbender for Halloween. So that was a good one too. I want to give a shout out to that one too. So
I mean, all you need's that blue arrow right down the center of the head. You got it covered, man.
Yeah, Andrew, do you have a good one for me? What do I look like? What do I look like?
Oh man, get back to me at the end of the episode. I'll start churning some ideas as we talk here.
All right. Before we go too off the rails, we do have to jump into some news and notes. And one of those, pretty much the biggest news and notes that we have here for this one is Frank Reich had his press conference following the, kind of the mini bye that the Colts had after their Thursday night victory over the Denver Broncos. A couple things that he talked about kind of stood out to me. One of the things that he mentioned was I think Joel Erickson did a great job of just putting him on the spot right away, talking about the issues of the offense and saying, like, what is going on with this offense right now? Because this is the worst we've ever seen this offense under the Colts, or with the Colts under Frank Reich. And Frank had a really good answer to it. He said, what we've talked about more than anything else that's giving us a problem is we're just getting behind the sticks, not just on third down, but even on second down. A lot of second and long, third and long. You're giving defenses a chance to pin their ears back. You're swimming upstream. We've just got to be more efficient on first and second down. I think that's a fair assessment. I think, it's kind of funny. I think basically what that quote comes down to is we just got to move the ball a little bit better, but they are getting so far behind the stick. We're seeing a lot of 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11s, and it's just really killing this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's multiple different reasons why they're getting behind the sticks. I mean, first of all, let's talk about what's going on the field. Simply, the Colts offense just needs to execute better. And there's been multiple instances of them getting behind the sticks this year, but we'll just go back to the first drive of the game against the Broncos. I mean, it was a quick out to Nyheim Hines in the flat, and Nyheim just drops it. Then you do 2nd and long, run it up the middle with Nyheim for 2-yard gain or something like that. And then within a matter of a minute, you're in a 3rd and 8 situation when your offensive line hasn't been able to block, and this Broncos defense is going to bring the house on you. So it's tough when you're getting so far behind, and this team hasn't been able to rely on a Jonathan Taylor run on first down that gets them 5 to 6 yards. It just hasn't happened yet. So the better that they can execute. And then my second point is the play calling. I think Frank Reich can definitely help in those instances of getting him into better situations or scheming guys open to make the offense easier on first down to get some positive yardage out of that. It can really make a difference for this team going forward.
Yeah, Reich was asked about the quick passing game and how that was a staple in years past, and it's not really there this year. He did say that is kind of their bread and butter. They're just not executing right now, which, again, I can't fault him for that because, they're not executing at all right now.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Reich was also asked about his evaluation and comfort level with quarterback Matt Ryan. For that, he said that his comfort with Matt Ryan as their starting quarterback is still very, very high, especially after watching the film. And I think he also mentioned something in that quote about playing the position for a long time. He knows what to look for. So he feels comfortable with everything Matt Ryan. I know we've been kind of critical on this podcast of Matt Ryan, and not to the point where we're going to bury him and say that he can't turn it around, but it's always good to have that confidence in your quarterback, even if you're just saying that for the media.
Right. And I know you watch the film every week. I watch the film focusing in on Matt Ryan every single week. And it's just such a stark contrast from when Matt Ryan does have time and he can sit in the pocket and deliver a throw on time versus when he's got 2 to 3 guys right in his face. And and really any quarterback is going to have that issue, but especially with Matt Ryan, he's not a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen who can escape that and make a play down the field. He's 37 years old. He's never been a overly mobile quarterback. You can ask him to move a little bit in the pocket, but he's not a guy that can just create things on his own. And that's in the situation that the Colts keep putting him in, and he hasn't been able to deliver. And then just watching as the weeks have gone on, watching the film, you see him pressing more and more, trying to maybe put not necessarily put the team on his back, but kind of just be the superhero and try to make every single play. He's like, okay, my offensive line is breaking down, but I got to deliver this throw. And that's when you get into some of those sticky situations where he holds onto the ball a little bit too long and he makes one of his 11 fumbles that he has had this year. So it's a tough situation for Matt Ryan to be in, because I think if this offensive line was performing at an average level, I think we'd be having a completely different conversation about Matt Ryan. But because they've regressed to 2017 levels, it seems like the conversation has completely changed, and Matt Ryan's feeling the brunt of the failure by the protection from the offensive line to the backs, the tight ends, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. No, I do think that this offense will eventually turn around, but we are getting to the point where we don't really have the room to keep saying that. And Frank Reich did kind of address that today too. He did talk about how, eventually this stuff needs to turn around. Like he said that the fumbles, if you look at Matt Ryan's entire career, these fumbles would tell you that it's a fluky thing, but it's the one time that we've seen it with Matt Ryan. So how fluky can it really be? So yeah, that's really interesting. And then talking about that offensive line, which we're going to talk about even more in segment 2. Frank Reich was asked if Bernhard Raimann will be the left tackle going forward. Frank Reich said, and I quote, we've had small conversations over the weekend. There were no formal meetings. We were all getting rest and doing some work on our own. We'll have those discussions this week here. And then early on later today, tomorrow, we will solidify what our plan will be going forward. So you guys might even, by the time you hear this podcast, they might have solidified who their offensive line is going to be. But, they're still talking about the right guys to put out there, Andrew. We're going to, again, you don't have to talk too much here, but because we're going to talk more in segment 2. But yeah, it's still a conversation here going into week 6 about who the right 5 guys are out there at offensive line.
It really is. And I know some people would say, well, shouldn't you know that and already? And probably, honestly, yes. But when you look back, say, like 2018, when they were shuffling parts around the offensive line, it took till week 5 or 6, or whenever that game against New England was, where Braden Smith was forced to play right tackle. They got Mark Lewinsky in there at right guard, that they finally found which 5 worked together, and then things took off. Do I think that this offensive line can reach those levels? Probably not with the current group that they have. There's not an Anthony Costanzo out there that's shored up the left tackle position or anything like that. But if you're the Colts, you can't stop trying until you find the best group that's out there. And I do credit the coaching staff for making a big move. They know that it's this, what was happening the first couple weeks of the year, the same lineup. it's not working and it's not going to get any better. So throw Raymond out there, see what he's got. Shift up some things on the interior. We saw Fries at right guard. Now Braden Smith. Does Matt Pryor go to right guard? Does Fries come back? We'll have to see. But at least they know that it's not a strength of this team, and they're trying desperately to make it a strength or even just make it serviceable at this point.
Yep, absolutely. And guys, coming up, we're going to talk even more about that. But one quick thing I wanted to add here before we get out of this segment is Frank Reich was asked about some injury updates, regarding Jonathan Taylor, Kwity Paye, Naeem Hines. He didn't have an update for us as of Monday evening when we're recording this podcast. So we will know more about those injuries going forward in the week, but he didn't have one for us there. If you guys want to check out this presser along with, I think, there's some other players like Alec Pierce talked, Stephon Gilmore talked. If you guys want to see all that, I think the Colts YouTube channel does have that. Before we get into our main segment of the day and talking about this Colts offensive line and the chaos that it is, fall is chaos in your pants. You're overheating 1 second and freezing the next. To be ready for anything, you need underwear that can handle everything. It's time for Tommy John underwear. Name a problem with any other underwear, and Tommy John has solved it. Tommy John's breathable, lightweight fabric has 4 times the stretch of competing brands. They come with a no wedgie guarantee. I mean, that's huge for me. I don't know about you guys. That's huge. Thanks to a non-rolling waistband and legs that never ride up. Plus, they feature a horizontal quick draw fly. Hammock pouch support stops the awkward swing and slap, giving everyone something to be grateful for. With over 17 million pairs sold, people love Tommy John underwear. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. Just like we have at this podcast. We have fanatics. We don't have customers. I love wearing my Tommy John sleep pants. I know I didn't get underwear yet, but I just love a good comfy pair of sleep pants, really soft. And, that's what I went to Tommy John for. So if you guys want some sleep pants, underwear, whatever, Tommy John has got you covered. You should get Tommy John's too, everybody. Plus, everything's back with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free, guarantee. Go to TommyJohn.com/lockedon right now for 20% off your first order. 20% off at TommyJohn.com/lockedon. TommyJohn.com/lockedon. See site for details. And thanks again, Colts fans, for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, betting advice from the field's leading experts, Bet Online. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. All right, Andrew, let's jump into this offensive line that we all love. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing about this, but it really is. I mean, I guess we could just keep talking about the defense and be really happy. But honestly, this Colts team this year is going to go as far as this offensive line. If the offensive line can at least get to below average levels, I'm begging for below average levels, the Colts are going to win this division. But if they continue what they're doing, which all evidence kind of points to that happening, the Colts are not going to make the playoffs. They'd be lucky to even be in playoff contention. You can't survive in the NFL scoring 12 points a game. They're scoring 12, 13 points a game. You cannot survive in the NFL. So, Andrew, I know you watched some film. You're doing your Ryan's review and stuff like that. What was your takeaway from this Thursday's game with the offensive line and just kind of the offensive line on the year so far?
Man, I don't think any of us expected to be talking about the offensive line being the weakness of this team. I mean, I think we all expected it to have some ups and downs with a new left tackle and a new right guard, but for it to be as atrocious as it has been all season long, don't think any of us could have said that. It's when you turn on the film, it's a variety of issues. It's guys getting beat one-on-one. It's communication issues. And it really, I think it just comes down to a lack of trust between the whole unit. I mean, you see guys like Matt Pryor going out and just not even being able to get a hand on these speed rushers. And it's incredible to think that he last year played tackle and I think played tackle at a decent level, nothing world breaking, but he was a guy that could come in and you could trust that, okay, we'll be okay at that spot. This year it's just completely flipped, where they moved him over to the left side against the Broncos, and I mean, whether it was Bradley Chubb, Baron Browning, he couldn't get a hand on them. And I think his issues have stemmed and made Quentin Nelson, when he was over on the left side, Quentin Nelson wasn't as great. We've seen Ryan Kelly take a step back. Braden Smith has had some issues because of what's going on with right guard. There's no cohesion with this unit. And I think that's the biggest thing. And until they can get a five that they're comfortable with that sticks, this is going to continue to happen. And that's why when people talk about, well, Quentin Nelson's not playing at his level. Yes, but at the same time, the offensive line is five guys playing as one. And if you're not going in cohesion, if just one of those guys messes up on the play, it's going to mess up the entire play.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really well said. It's kind of a lot of things that we've been harping on here on this show. And one player that I do want to kind of focus on, and you mentioned him a couple of times there, is Matt Pryor. You know, going into this Broncos game, I think anyone would tell you what's the weakest link on the Colts offensive line. And I feel like everyone would tell you Danny Pinter. You know, it wasn't, the first 3 weeks, it was Danny Pinter as the fall guy. Every issue was Danny Pinter. The communication issues, all Danny Pinter, because everyone's is freaking out about Danny Pinter. And then you go into this Thursday night game where Matt Pryor the last 2 weeks was okay. Not good by any means, but he was fine. They move him over to that right side. And, I mean, I don't even know if abject disaster covers it. This was like Chaz Green, LaRaven Clark, who's that Webb guy's first name? Jamarcus Webb. It's like that level of disaster is what the Colts got. Maybe even worse, because I think Matt Pryor gave up the most pressures in Pro Football Focus's on the season, or maybe in the last couple of years. He had 8 pressures in the game. A lot of ones where he just wasn't even touching defenders, like you said. And I know I talked about this the last 2 episodes a little bit, but I really want to go into detail on this a little bit more. Matt Pryor was terrible. I am not trying to let him off the hook by anything I'm about to say. But Chris Strausser, Kevin Mawai, I mean, whoever made that decision, Frank Reich, whatever, to switch him from left tackle to right tackle after an entire offseason of work at left tackle, after the first 4 games at left tackle, is such a disastrous decision. That is so insanely dumb to switch a guy. Chris Ballard, I think, was asked this offseason about switching Braden Smith over to the left side and playing left tackle. And he said that's like switching your hands as a hitter in baseball, or switching your hands throwing a football. I can't remember exactly which analogy he used. So you're going to say that in the offseason, and then on a short week, you're going to flip Matt Pryor back to right tackle after all offseason working at left side. No wonder he wasn't getting a hand on an extremely explosive pass rusher in Baron Browning. Baron Browning had the edge, had that quick jump, but Matt Pryor was going backwards with every single step, and he's not a great athlete as it is. He's not a good athlete even. I'm not even going to give him great athlete. So that Thursday night was the perfect embodiment of a bad decision and a poor performance, and it led to just a disgusting, disgusting day in pass protection on that right side.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing too is if you're Matt Pryor, you would have to think his confidence is probably next to zero. And I mean, yes, he should take responsibility. He's the one that's out there to execute. But the coaching staff has not done him any favors, making him he's a guy that should be playing guard. And they thought a backup right guard should be their left tackle this year. Just malpractice on the coaching staff's part, on the front office for putting him in that position. And now, because of his confidence being so low, that's why when I see people on Twitter saying just put Matt Pryor at right guard, I don't even know if that's a good possibility or a good decision right now because of how low his confidence is. I don't know if we're really going to see that much improvement. So, I mean, he was out of position. Danny Pinter, who is more of a backup center, they thought he was going to be good at right guard. Another guy that's out of position. When people talk about the offensive line and how each position is different as far as technique, what goes into it and everything, a lot of people brush that off and say, oh, it's just alignment. But that's not the case. And I think you're seeing that more than usual, or it's just sticking out like a sore thumb this year, because you can't just plug and play guys on the offensive line unless you're a Hall of Fame caliber player like Quentin Nelson. I think if if Quentin got moved out to left tackle, he would still struggle a little bit until he gets his footing underneath him.
Yeah, definitely. And to close out this segment real quick, we're just going to talk about what we would kind of do to fix this offensive line. Again, nothing we say does or means anything, but I do think you and I have a very similar kind of starting lineup that we would go with and at least run with for a couple weeks here. Left tackle, I think we both agree that Bernard Ryman is probably the way to go there.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind Dennis Kelly being out there just because Dennis Kelly has experience, but Ryman did kind of settle down in the second half. I thought he played better there, and I'm more interested in seeing his development than anything else. Left guard, Quentin Nelson. Center, I would still keep Ryan Kelly. I know a lot of people have been saying put Danny Pinter in there. He's looked better, but honestly, Ryan Kelly against the Texans was the best any center has played for the Colts this year. And the Colts offense always moves the ball in the second half, so I'm not going to give that second half production to Danny Pinter being out there. So I'd still keep Ryan Kelly. Right guard, I would go Will Fries. I just think that he's the best pass protector. Yes, in the run game, he's going to struggle, but against Jeffrey Simmons, I didn't remember him getting beat like cleanly too often. Even when Simmons was beating him, he was still in front. He wasn't on his back like Danny Pinter against the Chiefs. So I would take that. And then you've got to move Braden Smith back to right tackle. I know Braden Smith had an okay game on Thursday, shockingly, but he's so much more valuable as a below average right tackle than as an average guard.
Right.
you need a below average right tackle out there. But do you agree that that's probably the best lineup going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in regards to Raymond, I mean, you drafted him in the third round to potentially be a guy that can play left tackle and be, I'm not going to say a cornerstone franchise left tackle, but he could be a solid starter. And I think that's what the Colts hope he turns into. So yes, there's going to be growing pains, but there's going to be growing pains with any rookie left tackle. You got to go put him out there. And you're right. He did settle down in the second half. I saw a lot better reps out of him in the second half. I don't want to move Nelson or Kelly. I think Nelson, you don't move a Hall of Famer from his position. While he has been playing down, I think it's a lot of what's going on around him that's caused that. Because when you still turn on the tape, he's still doing Quentin Nelson type things. Ryan Kelly, again, Danny Pinter to me is a good backup center, but he's not Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly, while has been down, he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. And you got to kind of have faith that once things settle down around him as well, kind of like with Nelson, I think you'll see Kelly start to do well. I'm on board with Will Fries. I've seen quite a bit of development from him from year 1 to year 2. Thought he played well against Tennessee, not outstanding, but I think he held his own. And Braden Smith, I think it goes back to that same kind of area with Nelson and Kelly, is all the communication. If Braden Smith isn't constantly worrying about what the right guard is doing next to him, he can focus on his guy and his guy alone. So yeah, I think that would be the best group moving forward. And I think that's what they should stick with throughout the season. And then in the off season, because you're not going to find anything out on the street right now, that's when you go and attack a left tackle and a right guard and make this offensive line whole again.
Yeah, definitely. So coming up, guys, we're going to do a little buy, sell, rapid fire here with Andrew while we have him. But first, I really want to talk to you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and even golf. Colts right now open as 2-point favorites against the road dogs, Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know how you guys are feeling about that matchup. I'm not going to tell you which way to bet either way, but that line is out there for you. You can go to BetOnline today and bet on that. So head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Andrew, we're going to do some buy or sell. I have 6 buy or sells. They're going to be about the Colts team or about individual players. You didn't hear these beforehand, so you're going to get your natural reaction, and we'll see if that ends up making us go to like 45 minutes on this podcast. We'll see. Knowing us, we do like to talk a little bit. But first one, a little bit of a fun one. I'm sure the fans will love this one. Buy or sell. Matt Pryor is starting in Week 6 against the Jaguars.
I'm gonna sell that. I
Okay.
think that the Colts are going to make a big change, and I think if you're looking at how he performed, I think there's no way you can put him back out there on the
Right.
field. So I think Braden Smith goes back out to right tackle, and we have either Will Fries or Danny Pinter at right guard.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking maybe they throw him back out there at left tackle for Ryman, but honestly, if it were up to us, we wouldn't play him after that last one. But who knows? The Colts are a little stubborn, especially when they just divvied out, a tiny little contract to Matt Pryor to make him a starter. So, that one will be interesting to see. Now let's go a little, macro here. We're going to talk a little bit big picture with a certain player. Colts rookie receiver Alec Pierce has been on a tear the last 3 weeks. I mean, if you take his last 3 weeks of production and extrapolate that over a whole season, he's on pace for over 1,200 yards receiving. Even with no production the first 2 weeks, he's on pace for around 800 yards this year. So buy or sell Alec Pierce over 800 yards receiving this season.
I'm going to sell that one. I think he comes
Okay.
close. I love Alec Pierce. I think he is doing a phenomenal job. I think at this trajectory, the Colts have found a number 2 or a complement to Michael Pittman Jr. for years to come. But I'm going to sell it. I think I want to see that this offensive line really come together before I start projecting big numbers for the wide receivers outside of Pittman, who we know is going to get his chances because he's the number 1. I'm going to go around 750. I think he just misses it, but I still think that Pierce is going to put up some pretty decent numbers this year.
Yep. And for all you guys listening there, if he does hit that 800 yards or even 750 like Andrew projects here, that would be the third most receiving yards by a receiver under Frank Reich with the Colts, obviously trailing just 2018 T.Y. Hilton and 2021 Michael Pittman Jr. So that would be a phenomenal season either way, but I'm with you. I think that's kind of 50-50. I could either go him getting, I could be talked in either way, but as of right now, he's playing some great football. Let's talk about another young player. Kwity Paye is likely to be out for a bit, might be an IR situation. We'll get an update here in the next couple of days. The guy stepping into his role, Dayo Adangbo. Buy or sell the Dayo Adangbo breakout with Kwity Paye out?
I'm going to buy it. I've liked what I've seen from Dayo Adangbo. I think he fits very well in at the big end position. He's great against the run. You're seeing him start to formulate a plan with his pass rush moves. Really like where Dayo's coming. That Achilles is healed up. There's nothing holding him back. He just needs the reps. So I'm all in on Dayo Adangbo.
Dayo Adangbo, 1.5 sacks the last 2 weeks, and that's more in the sub role. So now with him expanding to a starter role, we could see it, guys. We could see it. It might be finally time. Let's talk about another young player. I know I can't get enough of these young players. Buy or sell. Rodney Thomas II is a legit starting free safety. He's more than a flash in the pan.
Ooh, this one's tough. I'm going to err on the side of buy. I really like his traits, and he's a guy that plays very smart, doesn't seem like he's a rookie out there, and he's out there with Rodney McLeod, who's again, a nice veteran safety that's coaching him up. Do I think that he stays as the starter once Blackman has been cleared to play? No, I think Blackman comes in, but I think that the Colts have found somebody that he could probably play either safety spot, but especially that deep safety where Blackman plays. And I think they've got a great depth piece there for the foreseeable future.
Definitely. Yeah, it's another one where I could go either way because I am really liking what I see, but there's still some hesitancy. 7th round rookie hasn't really been tested too much. So I'm very, very interested in seeing him going forward. Now let's go to more units here. Buy or sell. This Colts defense right now, I think in DVOA and a lot of metrics is right around top 10 in the NFL. 10th, 11th. I think they're 11th in EPA per play. I think they're in the top 10 in DVOA. Buy or sell, this Colts defense finished the year as a top 10 unit.
I'm all in on that. I'm going to buy that because a guy that's the heart and soul of this defense hasn't been out there for besides a half or a quarter and a half, and that's Shaquille Leonard. I think this defense started out a little bit slow. Again, they're learning a whole different scheme, and while it's not a complete 180 of what they've been doing, there are still some various intricacies of this Gus Bradley system that are a pretty big change from what they're used to. So when they're getting more comfortable, you see guys not thinking as much. They're starting to play a little bit faster. Zaire Franklin has been pretty good in terms of filling in for Shaquille Leonard. But I think you're going to see once Shaq gets back, this defense is going to have a little bit more fire to them. Hopefully we see Isaiah Rodgers get into that starting role and get more and more snaps like we're starting to see. Dio ascension, Kwity Paye coming back. We're starting to see a fully healthy DeForest Buckner and what he can do now. I think this, not only can this Colts defense finish top 10, I think they'll be close to top 5. I don't know if they'll get there, but maybe between 5 and 7.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, I have it in like 8 to 14 range is where I kind of have them. So I could kind of go either way with that. But I love the optimism, and I love this defense right now. I do love this defense. Last one I have for you, and it kind of goes with what our second segment was. Buy or sell. This Colts offense / offensive line does just enough for the Colts to get into the playoffs.
Man, this is tough. This is the toughest one out of all of them. Oh, man. Because I think the defense is good enough. I think the defense is good enough. I think the quarterback is good enough when he has time. But just how you started the show, this team is going to go as far as the offensive line takes them. As of right now, I probably have to sell that. And I think it's just because they haven't showed me so far in the season that they can. They can do that. Yes, they beat Kansas City. Yes, you beat Denver. You had a chance to beat the Tennessee Titans all with this offensive line. But at the same time, things aren't getting better. And the more you're putting on film, the more blitzes this offense is going to see, the more stunts this offensive line is going to see. And until they can stop it, it's going to be a problem. So as of right now, I'm going to sell. I'm going to err on the side of selling. Give me like 55% sell, 45% buy. But yeah, it's going to be all predicated on how this offensive line, how Frank Reich, Chris Strausser, and this unit fixes themselves. And if they don't, it's going to be a very long roller coaster type season for this Colts offense.
Well said. Well said. Well, that's all we have for today, guys. I will be back with you tomorrow with another brand new guest star, so that should be a fun time. Thanks again for Andrew for joining the show and filling in for Jake. I always need someone to kind of level me out here, and I always love having you on. So follow Andrew Moore NFL on Twitter. You and Jake both have that NFL. I'm just 2. That's all. Andrew Moore NFL at Zach Hicks 2 and at Locked On Colts. Also subscribe and follow to the Horseshoe Huddle pages. I know Andrew's doing a lot of stuff with the podcast with our main channel and stuff like that. And then also subscribe to our show here, Locked On Colts, on YouTube. Thanks again for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.